The hotel ballroom erupted in laughter as my sister's words cut through the champagne haze. Even my big sister made it tonight, flying all the way from wherever she guards doors now. Every muscle in my body tensed as my mother's voice joined in, louder than necessary. She's the shame of this family, but at least she's punctual. My vision narrowed to pinpoints, the room's elegant chandeliers blurring into streaks of light. The wedding rehearsal dinner, an event I'd flown 8,000 miles to attend, had just become my public execution. The carefully arranged seating chart, the mismatched napkin at my place setting, the whispered word security when I'd entered in uniform, it all suddenly made terrible sense. I wasn't invited as family. I was invited as a prop. My name is Olivia. I'm 38 and a major general in the Army. This is the story of how I reclaimed my place at the table they tried to erase me from. 6 years of silence had passed since I'd heard my parents' voices in any form other than a voicemail forwarded by mistake. No calls on my birthday, no messages when I nearly lost my hearing in combat. Just cold, curated silence. And yet here I was, holding a wedding invitation with heavy cardstock and gold-embossed lettering. Major General Olivia Naylor. Not Liv, not their daughter, just a title. As if that made me easier to stomach. The invitation had been forwarded to my military address through official channels, bypassing my personal contact information they didn't have. It had sat on my desk like a dare for weeks. A handwritten note inside contained just one word. Behave. Not we miss you, not hope to see you. Just that single command, like I was a threat. I hadn't expected warmth, but I also hadn't anticipated this. Public humiliation orchestrated by my own family. As everyone laughed at my mother's joke, I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I stood up slowly, lifted my untouched champagne glass, and took a calm sip. The silence that followed didn't come because I shouted. It came because I didn't. I set my glass down precisely and spoke clearly. The people I guard outrank everyone in this room. 7 words, no emotion, just fact. No one laughed after that, not because they understood, but because for the first time, they didn't know where to place me anymore. I remained standing, not because I had something more to say, but because for once, I needed them to see me, not guess, not assume, not avoid. My sister Reagan's smile faltered. The microphone trembled slightly in her manicured hand. This wasn't how her script was supposed to play out. I was meant to shrink, to accept my assigned role as family disappointment. And then I saw him, Jason, Reagan's fiancé, standing at the far end of the ballroom. His jaw was tight, eyes locked on mine. He didn't laugh, he didn't smile. He just walked, slow, steady, with that soldier's gait you can't fake. Past the cousins, the neighbors, the friends of friends. He moved past my mother, who whispered something sharp that he ignored, past Reagan, who froze mid-glance and clutched her champagne like it might save her. He stopped 1 pace away from me, not close, not casual, formal, and then he saluted. Crisp, sharp, regulation perfect. Clear enough to cut through every chandelier and every lie in the room, he said, "This is Major General Olivia Naylor, my commanding officer. Please forgive my wife." The gasp was audible before you could see who it came from. Reagan's smile shattered. Her eyes went wide. The microphone slipped from her hand, hit the floor, and thudded like a gavel. She swayed, then collapsed into a nearby chair. Someone screamed. A flute of champagne shattered. My mother stood so fast her chair toppled, but I didn't blink because this wasn't revenge. This was recognition, and it was long overdue. The ballroom froze, not with panic, but with something colder. Realization. Then, from one of the side tables near the wine bar, a man in uniform stood. Colonel Franklin, retired but still proud. He raised his hand in salute. No words, just respect. Then another, General Price. Then a third, an older woman I didn't recognize but whose eyes said everything. She'd worn stars once, too. 4 salutes, 4 truths made visible, and no one could unsee it now. My mother tried to speak. "This is not the time," but no one was looking at her anymore. The eyes in the room had shifted, not because I'd asked for them to, but because they finally understood what they'd erased. And just like that, the shame they'd thrown on me fell back on them, quiet but heavy. Jason lowered his salute. He stepped back, giving me the floor without saying another word. I didn't take the microphone. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there. And somehow, that was louder than anything they'd ever said to me. 2 days later, after skipping the actual wedding ceremony, I sat across from my mother in the hotel lounge. She had texted my temporary room number requesting to meet, and I had agreed. Velvet chairs, dim lamps, hushed voices. The kind of place where secrets didn't echo. Barbara Naylor wore a pale cardigan and a blouse with pearl buttons. Not one was undone. "You certainly made a statement," she said without reaching for me, without smiling. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She took a sip of her cold coffee. "The media is buzzing. Some of the headlines are flattering, some aren't. Still nothing from me." "I wasn't prepared," she continued. "None of us were. Not Reagan, not even your father, if he was still—" "Reagan fainted," I said flatly. Barbara blinked. "She has sensitivities." "To truth?" I asked, "or to not being the center of attention?" Her grip on the cup tightened. "I didn't come to fight." "Then why did you come?" I asked. She hesitated, then leaned forward slightly. "I thought maybe you could release a statement, something neutral, clarifying that we, didn't fully understand your position." There it was. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want me to issue a press statement, not to correct a lie, but to protect your discomfort." She flinched, slight, but I caught it. "You have to understand," she said. "We didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to protect the family's image. You were different. Loud." "I wasn't loud," I replied. "I was visible. That's not the same thing." I reached into my leather folio and slid a document across the table. She didn't touch it, just stared. "This was sent 7 years ago," I said. "An anonymous tip to the Military Ethics Board alleging I falsified combat reports, questioned the validity of my Bronze Star, claimed I was unstable, politically promoted." Barbara didn't blink. "I was passed over for my first star that year," I continued. "No explanation, just silence." "That could have been anyone," she said quickly. "You're a public figure." I slid the second page forward. "Linguistic analysis, military use only. Cross-referenced writing patterns, sentence structure, phrases." I tapped the bottom line. 96% match. Reagan Naylor, secondary lexical contributor. Barbara Naylor. Barbara's lips parted, then closed again. For the first time, I saw it. The crack behind the pearl buttons. She started. "I didn't write it." "But you gave her the language," I said. "The access, the documents, the tone. She sent it, but it was your fingerprints." She looked down at her coffee. It had gone cold. "You didn't just ignore me, Mother," I said. "You sabotaged me, quietly, professionally, efficiently." Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. "I made choices," she whispered, "and I paid for them. I didn't stop loving you." "No," I replied. "You just stopped calling." The silence that followed wasn't angry. It was heavier than that. "Do you have any idea what it feels like," I said, "to watch your mother pretend you don't exist?" Her voice cracked. "I was trying to protect your sister. She couldn't compete with—" "She didn't have to compete," I said sharply. "She just had to show up, and you made sure I was too buried to be seen." Barbara looked older in that moment. Not softer, just exhausted. She reached a hand halfway across the table. "I never wanted to lose you." "You didn't lose me," I said. "You pushed me out the door, then blamed me for not coming home." She said nothing. Her hand stayed hovering, never landed. "If someone asks why I stopped coming," I continued, "don't say I drifted. Don't tell them it was complicated. Tell them the truth. You made a choice, and so did I." I stood, leaving the documents on the table. She didn't chase me. That's the thing about betrayal by your own mother. It doesn't need a raised voice. It just needs silence and paperwork. 6 months later, the breeze off the Amalfi Coast smelled like salt and lemon. I stood barefoot on the terrace of a small cottage tucked into the cliffs, a cup of dark espresso in one hand, the sea stretching out below me like it had nothing to prove. For the first time in years, I felt still. No orders, no dress codes, no ceremonies or salutes, just morning light, canvas, and silence that didn't punish me for existing. The press never got the statement they wanted. I didn't give them a quote or a sound bite. Just one moment, one salute that said everything, and that was enough. The clip from the wedding went viral. Over 3 million views in the first 48 hours. The caption read, "They mocked her until her rank silenced the room." I never commented, never shared it, never explained. I didn't need to. Weeks after the wedding incident, the Pentagon called. They offered me the chair position on the new Joint Ethics Advisory Board, a seat built, ironically, out of the very betrayal that tried to break me. But I said no. Instead, I requested early retirement, which was approved given my service record, and I launched the Resilience Foundation, a national resource for service members whose careers have been sabotaged by the people closest to them, spouses, siblings, parents. We help them rebuild not just their clearance, but their confidence. Because sometimes the biggest battles aren't fought in uniform. They're fought at dinner tables, in family group chats, in empty seats at funerals. The irony, the people who worked hardest to erase me are the ones who made me unforgettable. A few months ago, my mother sent a letter, handwritten. She found my address through a mutual military connection. She said she watched my interview on PBS, the one about betrayal and chain of command. She wrote, "Period. I didn't realize how far you had climbed. I wish I had seen you then." But that's the thing. She did see me. She just didn't want to. And now she doesn't get access to who I've become. Not because I hate her, but because I finally love myself enough to choose distance without guilt. The military taught me how to lead under fire. But exile? My family taught me that. So I made peace with it. This morning, the boy from the village came by with a basket of bread and olives. He asked in broken English, "Were you really a general?" I smiled. "Once," I said. "Now I'm just someone who decided not to disappear." He grinned and ran off barefoot and laughing. I turned back toward the sea, and for the first time, the silence didn't hurt. Have you ever had to walk away, not to hurt them, but to finally protect yourself? I'm not asking for details, just if this story reminded you of someone, or some silence you've lived through, tell me you're here. That's it. Just drop a heart or a word. I'll read them all. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you felt seen, even just for a moment, then I'm glad we found each other. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one. The temperature in my parents' kitchen dropped 20 degrees despite the summer heat outside. My father's words hung in the air between us like poison. "We think it's better if you skip this one," he said, eyes not quite meeting mine. "Mom's birthday party is about appearances." My grip tightened around the wrapped first edition book I'd spent months tracking down for my mother's 60th. The brown paper crinkled under my fingertips, suddenly feeling childish and inadequate. Across the granite island, my brother Victor smirked, arms folded across his custom-tailored suit. "You're 30, Julia," Victor said, his voice dripping with the same condescension he'd perfected since we were kids. "You live in that rented apartment, work from home, doing God knows what on computers, drive a car from 2014, and dress like you never left college. We can't have you at Mom's party. People will ask questions we don't want to answer." My mother, whose milestone birthday celebration I was apparently unfit to attend, stared at her hands, her silence a betrayal deeper than their words. "My name is Julia. I'm 30 years old and a software entrepreneur. This is the story of how I turned my family's rejection into the sweetest vindication they never saw coming. So I'm an embarrassment. I said, keeping my voice steady while my pulse thundered in my ears. Don't make this dramatic, Victor snapped. We're being realistic. This is a high society event. You don't belong in that world, and it's not fair to ask you to act like you do. It would be awkward for everyone. I turned to my mother, the last thread of hope fraying. Mom, is this what you want? She finally met my gaze, her expression a mixture of apology and agreement. Julia, I love you, but Victor's right. Mrs. Whitmore's daughter just became partner at her law firm. The Johnson's son is a heart surgeon. What do I say when people ask about you? That you work from home on a computer? You could say I'm an entrepreneur, I offered. Victor laughed outright, the sound like glass breaking. An entrepreneur? Julia, you've been figuring yourself out for 8 years. That's not a business. That's dodging a real job. My throat constricted as I absorbed how my family saw me, or rather, how they refused to see me at all. I placed the wrapped book on the counter with deliberate care, though every cell in my body wanted to throw it through their pristine kitchen window. I see, was all I managed before walking out. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask during those 8 years of figuring myself out, was what I'd actually been building while they were busy dismissing me. My software company started modestly, just me and Nate, a brilliant developer I met at a tech conference. We identified a gap between complex enterprise analytics tools and basic spreadsheets, then built a platform specifically for mid-sized businesses. Our first office was my dining room table, with extension cords snaking across the floor to power our equipment. The first 2 years were brutal. 18-hour days, ramen dinners, every cent reinvested. By year 3, we had 50 clients and started hiring. By year 5, 3 offices and Fortune 500 companies using our platform. By year 7, major tech firms circling, eager to acquire us. I'd kept it quiet partly because mixing family and business creates messy dynamics, but mostly because I wanted to see how long they would cling to their assumptions without asking a single, meaningful question about my life. The timing of their exclusion was almost poetic. For 6 months, I'd been in negotiations with Tech Venture Global, a massive conglomerate interested in acquiring my company for $340 million. After endless due diligence, contract talks, and legal reviews, we were finalizing the deal the day before Mom's party. I spent the 3 days after that kitchen confrontation working with Nate and our lawyers to tie up loose ends. The acquisition would make me wealthier than I'd ever imagined, my equity stake yielding roughly $180 million after taxes. On Friday afternoon, I sat in a sleek downtown conference room signing the final papers. The weight of the Mont Blanc pen in my hand felt significant as I traced my signature across the documents that would forever change my life. Champagne corks popped, hands were shaken, congratulations flowed. As the celebration quieted, Margaret Reeves, Tech Venture's CEO, pulled me aside. Julia, what you've built is extraordinary, she said, her eyes bright with genuine admiration. This platform will revolutionize how we serve mid-market clients. You should be incredibly proud. Thank you, Margaret. I am, I replied, the validation warming me in a way my family's approval never had. She reminded me the press release would go live at 6 p.m., noting that major media outlets were ready to cover it. Local entrepreneur sells company for $340 million. It's big news in this market, she said. I glanced at my watch. 6 p.m. would hit right during Mom's party, which started at 5:30. Perfect timing, I said, a small smile playing at my lips. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Big plans tonight. My mother's birthday party, I replied, then added, though I wasn't invited. Her eyes widened. They didn't invite you to your own mother's party on the day you close a 9-figure deal? They don't know about the deal. Or the company, I said. They think I'm avoiding a real career. Margaret stared, then burst out laughing. Oh, Julia, I almost feel bad for them. Almost. I returned to my rental apartment, actually a penthouse condo I'd bought outright 3 years ago, and changed into comfortable clothes. After the intensity of the day's events, I needed time to decompress in my own space. I had no intention of crashing the party. I wasn't after dramatic showdowns or desperate to prove my worth. They had excluded me, and I was at peace with it. At 6:15, my phone lit up. Nate's name flashed on the screen. "Julia, have you seen the news? It's everywhere. Local channels, business networks, your name and photo all over social media." I grabbed the remote and flipped on the TV. Sure enough, the local news led with it. Local tech entrepreneur sells company for $340 million, one of the state's largest acquisitions. My professional headshot from our company website filled the screen. The anchor detailed my background, our company's growth, and the deal's significance. They'd even sent a reporter to stand outside our downtown office. My phone buzzed relentlessly with congratulatory messages from colleagues, clients, and tech community friends. Then a call from an unfamiliar number. "Miss Harrison, this is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We're doing a special segment on your acquisition for our 10 p.m. business spotlight. Could we get an interview?" "I appreciate the interest," I said, "but I'm not seeking media attention right now." "I understand, but this is a huge story," she pressed. "You're 30, built a company from scratch, and just closed one of the state's biggest tech deals. People need to hear this kind of success story. Would you reconsider?" I was about to decline when another call came through, my mother's number. "Miss Walsh, can I call you back in 5?" I switched to my mother's call. Chaos erupted in the background. Voices, a blaring TV, general commotion. "Julia." Her voice was shaky. "Is this true? What they're saying on the news?" "What are they saying, Mom?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. "That you sold a company for hundreds of millions. They're showing your picture, calling you a tech visionary. Julia, what's going on?" I could hear my father in the background. "Let me talk to her." "I sold my company today," I said plainly. "The one I've been building for 8 years while you thought I was dodging a real job." The silence was deafening. "Your guests," I said, piecing it together. "They're seeing the news. They're watching the coverage." "Everyone's watching," my mother whispered. "We have the TV on in the living room. Someone recognized your photo. All my friends are here. Mrs. Whitmore, the Johnsons, Victor's senior partners. They're asking why you're not here, why we never mentioned your company." I heard Mrs. Whitmore's voice in the background, clear as day. "Carol, I don't understand. Your daughter just sold a company for $340 million, and she's not even here. What kind of family is this?" I heard Victor's voice, loud and defensive. "We didn't know." "How were we supposed to know?" My father grabbed the phone. "Julia, you need to come to this party right now. You need to explain this to people." "Explain what, Dad?" "That I'm not an embarrassment? That I have a real career?" The words tasted bitter. "Maybe you should have asked about my life instead of assuming you knew everything." "This isn't fair," he said, his voice rising. "You kept this from us on purpose." "I didn't keep anything from you," I corrected, heat rising in my chest. "I told you I was an entrepreneur. I told you I ran a software company. You chose not to take it seriously. You decided I was aimless and unsuccessful. That's on you." Victor snatched the phone. "Julia, get over here now. Do you know how this looks? Everyone's asking where you are, why you weren't invited to your own mother's party." "I wasn't invited because you said I'd ruin it," I reminded him, my voice sharp with 8 years of dismissed accomplishments. "You called me an embarrassment who didn't fit with prominent people. Your words, Victor." The silence confirmed he knew I was right. "Things are different now," he said finally. "Before you knew I was rich," I finished, "so I'm acceptable now that I have money." "That's your stance?" I heard my mother crying in the background. Part of me felt a pang of guilt, but a bigger part knew they had created this mess themselves. "I'm not coming," I said firmly. "You made it clear I wasn't welcome. That doesn't change just because new information shifts your social equation." "Julia, please," my mother said, taking the phone. "We made a mistake. Come here. Let me introduce you properly. Let people see." "See what, Mom? Your successful daughter you're suddenly proud of now that she's valuable to your social status?" "That's not fair," she said, her voice trembling. But we both knew it was. "I have to go," I told my mother. "I have interview requests to handle. Enjoy your party." I hung up and blocked their numbers. The family drama could wait. I had actual business to attend to. I called Jennifer Walsh back and agreed to the interview. By 9 p.m., I sat in a studio discussing entrepreneurship, the tech industry, and the value of perseverance. The interviewer didn't bring up my family, and neither did I. The 10 p.m. news segment was thorough and glowing, highlighting my company's growth, our platform's innovation, and my leadership through the acquisition. Margaret gave a statement calling me one of the most talented entrepreneurs I've worked with. My phone continued buzzing. Messages from extended family, old classmates, even high school acquaintances suddenly eager to reconnect. I ignored most of them. The only message I answered was from my college roommate, Tara. Just saw the news. So proud of you. Not remotely surprised. You've always been brilliant, and now the world sees it. Bet your family's freaking out. I replied, "You're not wrong. I'll call you tomorrow." The fallout played out predictably. My mother's party descended into chaos, with guests congratulating my parents on my success while side-eyeing them for my absence. Social media posts from attendees showed my professional photo on the TV screen, an awkward backdrop to a party I wasn't attending. Victor called from a new number on Sunday. I let it go to voicemail. His message was pure deflection. "Julia, we need to discuss how you handled this. You could have warned us about the announcement. We looked like idiots in front of everyone. You owe us an explanation and an apology for embarrassing us." The nerve was almost admirable. My mother took a different approach, asking my Aunt Karen, who'd always been kind to me, to reach out. I took Karen's call. "Julia, your mom's a wreck," she said. "She hasn't stopped crying since Saturday." "I'm sorry she's upset," I said sincerely. "But Aunt Karen, they uninvited me from her party. They called me an embarrassment, said I'd ruin it. What was I supposed to do?" "You could have told them about your success," Karen said gently. "Given them a chance to see the real you." "I've been building this company for 8 years," I replied. They never asked a single meaningful question about my work. They assumed I was lost and unsuccessful and treated me accordingly. That's not my job to fix. Karen paused. "You're right," she said finally. "They made assumptions. They were wrong. But Julia, they're still your family. Is this how you want things to end?" "I don't want it to end any specific way," I said. "Honestly, I want them to see they excluded me based on wrong assumptions about my value. I want them to realize their love shouldn't depend on my bank account. And I want a real apology, not because I'm rich and useful now, but because they hurt me by dismissing who I was before the money." "That's fair," Karen said. "Can I share this with your mom?" "If you think it'll help." 2 weeks later, my mother called from Karen's phone. I answered. "Julia," she said, her voice raw, "I've been thinking a lot. Karen told me what you said, and she's right. I was wrong." I waited. "I assumed things about your life because it didn't match my idea of success," she continued. "You didn't have a fancy job title, didn't talk about raises or promotions, didn't flaunt your achievements, so I assumed there weren't any. I was so caught up in what I could boast about to my friends that I never asked about your life, what you were building, what you were proud of, what challenges you faced. I was a terrible mother." Her honesty caught me off guard. She admitted they'd taught Victor the wrong values and that he owed me an apology. She said Dad was struggling, but trying. I told her I'd built my company out of passion, not to prove myself, and it hurt that they only valued me once money entered the picture. Victor later sent a terse apology, which I accepted but kept my distance. We've spoken only a handful of times since then, mostly at family events where we maintain a polite but distant relationship. His pride was too wounded to allow for a genuine reconciliation, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted one. 6 months after the acquisition, I invited my parents to the opening of my new venture, a co-working space and incubator for female entrepreneurs. As we toured the facility, my father pulled me aside. "Are you happy, Julia?" he asked, the question startling in its simplicity. For the first time, I could answer honestly. "Yes, Dad. I really am." "I'm glad," he said, awkwardly patting my shoulder. "And I'm sorry it took me so long to see you clearly. I was wrong, and I missed out on so much of your journey because of my stubbornness. Not because of the money or the recognition, but because I'd built something meaningful on my own terms. And finally, my family was seeing me, not for what I owned or earned, but for who I'd been all along. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one. The fork in my hand froze halfway to my mouth as my mother's words hung in the air between us. "You need to move out," she said casually, chewing another bite of the turkey I'd spent hours roasting. The Christmas lights reflecting in her wine glass suddenly seemed harsh and glaring, not festive. Across the table, my sister Olivia's eyes widened in shock, her hand instinctively reaching for mine under the tablecloth. "Really?" I managed, my throat constricting as I carefully set my fork down beside the homemade stuffing I'd woken up at 5 a.m. to prepare. "I pay the rent, cover the bills, and buy all the groceries." My voice remained steady even as I felt heat rising from my collar, the sensation of being ambushed in my own home, the home I financially supported, making my skin prickle uncomfortably. My mother simply shrugged, reaching for more cranberry sauce as if she'd merely commented on the weather forecast rather than detonated my entire life. The Christmas tree lights blinked in my peripheral vision, each color shifting in rhythm with my quickening pulse. "My name is Jessica. I'm 26 and an IT specialist. This is the story of how I reclaimed my worth after the woman I supported betrayed me at my own dinner table." For context, I hadn't moved in with my mother. She had essentially moved in with me. 3 years ago, when she lost her job at the insurance firm where she'd worked for 15 years, the foreclosure notices started arriving. I still remember the day I found her at the kitchen table, surrounded by past due bills. Her normally confident posture crumpled. "I'll handle it," I'd promised, moving back into my childhood bedroom that weekend. What was supposed to be temporary support became a permanent arrangement. Each month, $1,842 left my account for the mortgage, another $237 for utilities, $412 for groceries, $89 for her cell phone, $13.99 for her Netflix subscription. I tracked every penny in a spreadsheet I never showed her, never wanting her to feel like a burden. But somewhere around the 18-month mark, something shifted. Small criticisms became daily occurrences. If I loaded the dishwasher, I'd done it wrong. If I came home after 9 p.m., I was being inconsiderate. If my work calls interrupted her television shows, I was disrespectful. I told myself she was just struggling with her new dependency, that her pride was wounded. I rationalized every cutting remark, every cold shoulder, every guilt trip. After she dropped her Christmas dinner bombshell, I didn't create a scene. The moment crystallized something I'd been feeling for months. I had become a tenant in a home I paid for, tolerated rather than appreciated. As Olivia and our cousin Peter exchanged uncomfortable glances, I simply excused myself from the table, leaving behind the meal I'd spent all day preparing. In my bedroom, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall I'd repainted last spring when Mom mentioned she'd always hated the color. The dresser drawer where I kept my important documents was already partially open. I'd been checking my passport last week for a potential work trip. Now it seemed prophetic. I pulled out the drawer completely and began the mechanical process of gathering everything that mattered. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I methodically packed my belongings, sorting through years of accumulated life. What surprised me wasn't my efficiency, but my calmness. No tears, no rage, just a hollow acceptance that the person I'd sacrificed for had been waiting for the right moment to discard me. By 6:47 a.m., as the first gray light of post-Christmas morning filtered through my window, I had reduced my life to 2 suitcases, a laptop bag, and a small box of mementos. My mother's bedroom door remained firmly closed as I made 3 silent trips to load my car. I left my house key on the kitchen counter beside the coffee maker I'd bought her last birthday. No note, no dramatic goodbye, just the quiet click of the front door behind me. My friend Marcia answered on the first ring despite the early hour. "Need a place to crash?" she asked after I explained in as few words as possible. No questions about why, no judgment, just immediate support. The contrast between her instant kindness and my mother's calculated rejection wasn't lost on me. The first night on Marcia's couch, I stared at my phone, half expecting some recognition from my mother that she'd made a mistake. By the third night, as I signed the lease on a small studio apartment on Westfield Avenue, I had stopped checking for notifications from her. By the fifth night, as I assembled a second-hand bed frame in my new space, I realized she wasn't going to reach out at all. The silence was deafening. The woman who'd raised me, who I'd financially supported for 3 years, didn't even care enough to check if I had a roof over my head. The realization settled into my chest like concrete hardening. Then, 11 days after Christmas, my phone lit up with a message from Olivia. "Call me ASAP. You need to hear what Mom is telling everyone." I stepped out of my new apartment building into the bitter January cold to take the call, my breath forming clouds as Olivia's words hit me like physical blows. "She's telling everyone you abandoned her." My sister's voice trembled with anger. "She told Aunt Rachel you screamed at her during Christmas dinner and stormed out, leaving her with no way to pay bills. She's saying you've changed, become selfish and materialistic." The cold air suddenly wasn't enough. My lungs felt compressed, unable to expand fully as the betrayal deepened. It wasn't enough that she'd pushed me out. Now she was systematically destroying my reputation within our extended family. "Aunt Rachel is organizing a meal train for her," Olivia continued, disgust evident in her tone. "Uncle William called me asking what happened to you, why you'd do something so heartless. Mom's playing the victim perfectly, Jess, and people are believing her." That night, I checked my social media accounts to find the digital equivalent of doors slamming in my face. Uncle William had unfriended me on Facebook. Cousin Peter had removed me from our family group chat. Aunt Rachel, who had once promised to always be there for me after my father died, had posted a vague status about supporting family in difficult times that had garnered sympathetic comments from relatives I'd known my entire life. The injustice burned through the numbness I'd been cultivating. I'd given up promotions that required relocation to stay and support my mother. I'd postponed graduate school to maintain our financial stability. I'd sacrificed dating relationships that couldn't withstand my constant familial obligations. And my reward was character assassination. For 3 days, I drafted and deleted potential responses. A group message exposing the truth felt too defensive. Individual calls would be exhausting and might not be answered. Then, at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, sitting on my still bare mattress with only the glow of my laptop illuminating my face, I found my approach. I wrote a post. Not an angry rant, not a desperate plea, but a methodical, fact-based account. I detailed the exact amount I'd paid monthly for the mortgage, $1,842. I listed the utilities I'd covered for 38 consecutive months. I explained how I'd come home from work to find her foreclosure notice and immediately stepped in. I described cooking the Christmas dinner she claimed I'd abandoned. And finally, I recounted her exact words. "You need to move out." No accusations, no name-calling. Just verifiable facts with dates, amounts, and specific details that couldn't be easily dismissed as emotional exaggeration. I ended with a simple statement. "I wish my mother well, but I cannot continue to financially support someone who doesn't value my presence." I posted it, shut my laptop, and finally slept soundly for the first time since Christmas. The digital earthquake hit while I slept. By the time I checked my phone the next morning, the notification counter had given up, simply showing 99 plus in bright red. Text messages, voicemails, comments, and private messages flooded in faster than I could process them. The first one I opened was from Aunt Rachel. "Jessica, I owe you an apology. Your mother told me a completely different version of events. I should have reached out to you directly before making judgments. If you need anything at all, please let me know." Uncle William had commented publicly. "I've known your mother my entire life, and I should have remembered her tendency to reshape narratives. I'm sorry I didn't hear your side first." Even Cousin Peter had messaged. "Jess, we always saw how she treated you. Should have spoken up sooner. My spare room is yours if you need it." Each message peeled back layers of isolation I hadn't fully acknowledged. For years, I'd internalized my mother's narrative that I was the problem, that my support wasn't enough, that my presence was an inconvenience. Now, seeing others recognize the truth felt like oxygen rushing into a sealed room. But the validation came with its own pain. If they had seen how she treated me, why had no one said anything? If her behavior was recognizable enough that they immediately believed my account, why had I been left to navigate it alone for so long? My mother's response came exactly as I'd predicted, in waves that perfectly tracked her standard emotional manipulation playbook. First came the wounded innocence. "I can't believe you would humiliate me publicly like this, after everything I've done for you." When that received no response, she pivoted to outright denial. "You're twisting my words. I never told you to leave. You chose to walk out. You're making yourself the victim as always." And finally, when the silence continued, she reached the bargaining stage. "I think we both said things we regret. We should talk about this privately, as a family." I didn't respond to any of it. There was nothing left to say. The facts were public now, and they spoke for themselves. 3 weeks into my new independence, I bought myself a real couch. Not secondhand, not from a discount warehouse, but a brand new sectional in exactly the color I wanted. I positioned it exactly where I wanted it. I ate dinner sitting on it while watching shows at full volume, small rebellions that felt like declarations of independence. Then one evening, as I was returning from the grocery store, I saw Olivia sitting on the steps outside my building. Her face looked thinner, shadows under her eyes pronounced even in the dim hallway lighting. "It's gotten worse," she said without preamble once we were inside. The mortgage payment bounced. The electricity was shut off for 2 days before she managed to borrow enough from Grandma to turn it back on. She's blaming you for abandoning her, but she's also refusing to look for work, says her health won't allow it, though she seems fine when her friends invite her out. I set down the grocery bags, the familiar weight of responsibility already pressing on my shoulders. For a moment, I could feel myself calculating what I could cut from my budget to help. Then I caught myself. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this," I said carefully, "but I can't go back to that situation." Olivia's response stopped my breath. "I know. You did the right thing by leaving, Jess. You should have left sooner." She looked around my small apartment with its mismatched furniture and bare walls. "This place has more peace in it than that house ever did." Coming from the only other person who had lived under that roof, her words were both validation and absolution. She wasn't asking me to fix things. She was confirming I'd made the right choice in not setting myself on fire to keep someone else warm. "I'm thinking about moving out too," she admitted, "once I figure out how to make it work financially." "When you're ready," I promised. "I'll help however I can." We ordered takeout that night, talking openly about childhood memories we'd both reinterpreted as adults. The subtle favoritism our mother had shown her younger brother, our uncle. The way she'd isolated our father from his friends before their divorce. Patterns we'd been too young to recognize then, but could name clearly now. The knock on my door came exactly 5 weeks after Christmas. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing in the hallway, holding what appeared to be a store-bought apple pie. Her hair was freshly done, her smile practiced. I stepped into the hallway rather than inviting her in, closing my apartment door behind me. My sanctuary remained mine. "Jessica," she began, her voice taking on the gentle tone she used when asking for favors. "I've missed you. Things aren't the same without you around." She extended the pie slightly. "I thought maybe we could have dinner sometime, talk things through." I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse. "Did you come to apologize?" I asked directly. She paused, the practiced smile faltering slightly. "I don't think I need to," she replied, her true self showing through the performance. "I think we both made mistakes." And there it was, the confirmation that nothing had changed except her circumstances. No recognition of what she'd done, no accountability, just the expectation that I would once again adjust to accommodate her needs. "I wish you well, Mom," I said quietly, and closed the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I simply closed it firmly, the soft click of the latch more final than any dramatic gesture could have been. Inside my apartment, my home, I stood for a moment with my hand still on the doorknob. I waited for the familiar surge of guilt, the gnawing worry about whether I was doing the right thing. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar: peace. The post I wrote remained online, not as an act of revenge, but as a record of truth. Some family members still occasionally commented on it, often tagging others who needed to see evidence that setting boundaries wasn't selfish, that supporting family didn't mean sacrificing yourself. Olivia moved out 2 months later, taking a small apartment closer to her university. We meet for coffee every Sunday morning, a new tradition that belongs entirely to us. Sometimes we talk about our mother, sometimes we don't. Either way, we're building something new from the ruins of what broke us. As for me, I finally enrolled in that graduate program I'd postponed. My apartment now has art on the walls, pieces I chose because they spoke to me, not because they match someone else's aesthetic. I cook meals just for myself, using spices my mother always claimed were too strong. I no longer keep a spreadsheet of expenses paid for others. Instead, I track progress toward my own goals. I'm learning, slowly but steadily, that family is supposed to lift you up, not drain you dry. That love doesn't keep a balance sheet. And most importantly, that peace isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the only way to survive.